All right. All right, there we go. I sh I plus you still guidance swingers here. Ray rock and roll. Ray dom.
Ready to dominate, baby.
Welcome to Junkertown. Prepare your defenses. Select your hero. Attackers incoming in 30 seconds.
time to take initiative. Highly but inconspicuous timing is just ridiculous. 90% relate to this. Atheists can pray to this. Satan couldn't make it since he babysits those not convinced but opposites. Keep watching. The experience itself is worth all that I've gained. Mentally moving me, producing wounds in my pain. They say that I ain't the same. They say my vision has changed, but the reality ain't changed. It's the direction I've aimed. I'm headed skyward and I ain't even thinking at all. The impulse of instinct instinctively calls. Walls building up around me, but they're made to be crushed. Leaving eerie horror feeling with the settling dust. It's apparent when I talk, surrounding roads will turn barren. Just my presence when I walk, eroding eyes as they staring. But my music alone is all I need and I got. Get dropped, the only way I'd cease from the spot. Until my due date, this duo leaves impressions of crusade. Head on, you gotta take it as we break it into ways. Any natural born killer don't accept what my crew say. Hardly moved by it, we just choosing your doomsday. It's time now or never, yo, I'm raising the bar. Let this image capture history like the stripes and the stars. The everlasting sense of essence expresses what has affected me. As I feed off the downward spiral of humility. It's time to take initiative, highly but inconspicuous. Timing is just ridiculous. 90% relate to this. Atheists can pray to this. Satan couldn't make it since he babysits those not convinced but opposites. Keep watching it.
Continuance of my line has led me right to my prime. Best days of my life all written and coded in rhyme. Rhythm and chime has made me truly inspired. Aggressively chasing what's been known best inside. Put the bullshit aside and quit with the lies and realize it's time to make a movement. Heard through the skies like the sound of thunder crashing in the dark of the night. I'm coming out with a boom, watching rodents scatter with fright. Using this music, pen pushing, producing the truest blends with my oozing transgression. Inscribing these lessons like a tutor, surprised to be tested. These inspections invested by these mysterious peasants has got me guessing my accession presented is unessential. Demanding the release of my potential has handed me credentials and authorization to proceed in my ambition. Limitless by definition, infinitely spit until it's time to reposition. Time to advance, take over halfway across the land. Uphold and take up these fans. If achievable is my glass, it's filled right up to the max. Moving forward through this path is nothing like the last. Imagine my goals and sketch them into this path. Using God as my right hand to define and expand what it is that I can and can't do with my time. Amplified by the design through implying what's divine while keeping soundness of mind.
Step forth hard as ever with intent of a diamond. To shine, can I please get a moment of silence? For gladiator of balance, precisely approach what's demonstrated as challenge. Quickly disintegrate all evidence of arrival. Generate inspiration like awaited disciples. Eyefuls, or should I say that I'm coming with earloads? Explode and see my name stenciled in on your earlobe. I'm looking for a reaction, I'm sick of leaving them speechless. I'm sick completed by breaches that I've achieved in my speeches. It's time, I said the feeling is mine. Time to enforce structure behind enemy lines. Take over, torch and remain to the dead. Brainwashed to flashing images, repeating your head. Psychedelically manipulate when poison is needed. Shit, I'm the source of the needle. Distribute caution to people feeble and eager to bite hard. This given expects scars. Effects from the next cause emitted from tense jaws. It's time to recognize, no hesitation to get it. It's important to remember the survival of the fittest. It's time now or never, yo, I'm raising the bar. Let this image capture history like the stripes and the stars. The everlasting sense of essence expresses what has affected me. As I feed off the downward spiral of humility.
Chronologically composing the fundamentals throughout a chorus, placing space and actuality, immersed within devotion. Reality has been broken, the laws were the main focus. Not knowing us poets were the ones that must have wrote them. We're just throwing attention to other forms of mention to show this connection to sounds and strings as another form of our reflections. Two of the best descendants back in time to show our essence at perfection. Our essence at perfection.
Everyone's passwords are terrible and they should change their passwords right now. Let's just get that right out in the open. Okay, you all have bad passwords and you should feel bad. Probably not necessarily people who watch Computer File, but the majority of the public don't have good passwords, and it's a real problem. It's a problem because people like LinkedIn and TalkTalk get hacked and a bunch of hashed passwords go out onto the internet, and then within hours, half of them have been cracked. And then people are going, oh, well, this username and this password's been cracked. Well, let's just go and log on over there and see if that username and password combination gets me into their Amazon. Oh, it does. That's good news. And so on. Password cracking has massive implications for password security. for what passwords you need to use, how you need to store your passwords, and so on and so forth. In a previous video, Tom Scott talked about how to store passwords.
Please look up a recent tutorial for the language you're using.
As a company, right? These things are still true, right? The hashing algorithms that you have to use have become longer because they don't hold up as well, the older ones, which we'll see in a minute. So some things have changed, but really the principle remains the same, right? We don't store passwords unencrypted in a database because that's a terrible, terrible idea. What we do is we pass them through something called a one-way pseudo-random function, which basically takes some plain text password and turns it into gibberish. And then, when someone tries to log in, we do the same operation on what they've just typed, and if the gibberish matches up, we know they've typed in their password correctly without actually having to know what their password is. But if these hashes get dumped on the internet, then we can't reverse them because they're just random nonsense. But what we can do is test a load of different words by hashing them and seeing if the hashes match any of the ones in the dictionary. And if they do, we know we've cracked their password. And that's really, really easy to do. I'm going to show you it, and it scared me the first time. So yeah, let's see. I've changed all my passwords since then, put it that way. Okay, now this is, well, it's an SSH terminal, but this is Beast, right? The aptly named Beast, which is our deep learning, one of our deep learning servers. Right? Now, I'm not using it for deep learning right now, and nor is anyone else, I don't think. Shh. So just for a moment, we'll borrow it. It's about 2 or 3 times bigger than a normal desktop, but it's not server size rack. And it's sitting somewhere behind a bunch of locks. I think on this floor somewhere. I haven't seen it. Well, I saw it getting built and then it disappeared. Maybe we'll go and look at it sometime. So if we type in NVIDIA SMI, we can see what this is equipped with. For now, most of my contact with it is via a terminal, and I ask it to do things and it does them very, very fast. This particular server has 4 Titan X graphics cards in it. A Titan X is one of the foremost graphics cards. There are new Generation 10 NVIDIA graphics cards coming out and some AMD cards, but a Titan X is still performing massively well. Certainly for deep learning, it's very good because it has 12 gig of onboard RAM. Now, in some games, 12 gig of onboard RAM might be necessary for really high texture resolution. So if I wanted to play, you know, the new Doom game, and there was no one about, then I could. Apart from they've installed Ubuntu on it, so that doesn't help me much. It might be Fedora. Let's not go into that though. So suffice to say, it's Linux, right? And we've installed Caffe and other deep learning libraries, and lots of people are using it all the time to do interesting deep learning problems. We've got a huge array of different problems. But right now, we'll use it to do some password cracking. I've downloaded a program called CUDA Hashcat. Hashcat is one of the sort of foremost password cracking tools. It lets you do lots of different types of password cracking, which I'll talk about. And it does it very, very quickly because it makes use of a graphics card. Or in this computer's case, it makes use of all 4 graphics cards in parallel. Each of these graphics cards is capable of somewhere around, I think it's 10,000 million, so 10 billion hashes per second. My standard graphics card at home, which is pretty good, is about 4 billion. So these are nearly 2 times faster each, and there's 4 of them. Okay, so this is over 8 times faster. Let's say about 10 times faster than my computer at home. It takes 40 billion plain text password hypotheses, hashes them using MD5, and compares them to a list at a rate of 40 billion per second.
And how many words are in just the English dictionary?
More than you'd think, a lot more than you'd think, which is in some cases reassuring. In other cases, if your password is not very long, not reassuring at all. Okay. So we'll talk about the different, I'll show you it working, and I'll talk about the different kinds of password cracking, because they do have different implications for passwords. Okay, so Hashcat is run off a command line. What I've got here, if I just show it, this example file is just a list of hashes that comes with Hashcat. There's about 6 or so thousand hashes in it that range in difficulty. So some of them are going to be password 1, because that's what some people's passwords are, and some of them are going to be much longer, so 20 or 30 characters of almost random. And they're going to be very difficult to crack. So we won't crack all of them now, but we'll crack a fair few. So if I just show you this, these are what the hashes look like. MD5 produces a 128-bit hash. Now MD5 should not be used by anyone ever again, right? The problem is that lower standard hashes like MD5 and SHA-1 still get used a lot for back-end storage. Maybe the developers are thinking, well, it's already in SHA-1, you know, it's a lot of effort to convert them all over. Maybe people won't be able to log in for a while. Probably not. Yes, do. Change your hashes to something like SHA-512 really quickly, because this is not acceptable. Hashing that takes longer literally just takes longer for the GPU to process. And so you will go down from 40 billion to, you know, a few million or a few thousand for really good hashing that's been iterated a lot of times. And that makes the process insurmountably harder, you know, much more difficult. You know, and so that would be what I would recommend as a developer. As a user, it just means you have to have a password that's acceptable. But you have to, in a way, assume that some of the websites you use won't know what they're doing and will have it stored in MD5. If it's stored in plain text, then all bets are off, there's nothing we can do.
Prepare to attack.
Right, so let's just run this in brute force mode. So the first type of password cracking, which sees some use but not a lot, is brute force. So this is simply a case of starting with A, and then A, B, and A, C, and so on for different character sets. If we assume there's going to be some subset of passwords that use only lowercase letters, we can brute force those very quickly, especially if they're not very long. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to run an attack on these passwords of, let's say, 7 character passwords, all with lowercase letters. Okay, so that's like this.
Only
so
through conflict will we evolve.
Attack mode 3, which is brute force. Example hash, the hash file, and then my mask, which tells me what character sets am I going to use. So L is a lowercase letter, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
I look after yourselves out there. I'll get
thinking. There we go. So it's done it. Okay? If I scroll up, those are the passwords it found. Okay, not very many, because there aren't very many, luckily for these users, lowercase only passwords.
Greetings.
But it went through the whole combination of lowercase letters at 7 lengths in a second, which isn't great. Right? So we step it up a lot. Now we say, right, okay, let's do 8 characters. And we run it, and 40 billion attempts per second. And then just leaves the hash and the associated passwords. So what it means is at some point it's tried my Cubana, the combination of letters for my Cubana, it's hashed it, and
I am securing the objective.
put that in our output. Right? Okay, so let's just step it up a little bit further. Right? Some passwords, for example, will have 2 digits at the end. Okay? Passwords that have numbers in have 1 or 2 digits at the end, maybe 4, because they're dated. So let's say we say 6 character passwords. Ah, there were only a few of those, but we found them. There they are. This is a good start. So when you're doing a brute force, sort of naive brute force attack like this, then you're using the number of characters in your character set to the power of. In this case, there are 26 to the power of 7 for our one where we would find 7 passwords, and then for let's say 6 character passwords with 2 digits on this one, it's going to be 26 to the power of 6 multiplied by 10 to the power of 2. So this is the status of the last attack I did, and it had this many passwords to crack, and it's done them all, and it was doing it at 38 hashes per second, which is why MD5 is not usable in any
Lose
set,
the battle,
Don't use
win
it.
the war.
Okay, is that clear yet? Okay, so this is a start, right? Now the problem is that first of all, you know, I only get a few hashes each time because it, you know, this is only 6,000 passwords. If for a LinkedIn 40 million password database, you get a lot like this. But it's a bit of work for me to do this. There are ways of generating these masks automatically and iterating through them to try all the different combinations. The other thing is that once we start getting to 9 or 10 character passwords, even for this machine, it starts to become impractical, particularly if people are using larger character sets. So consider that this 7-length password is 26 to 7. Well, if you're using lower and uppercase, it's going to be 26 times 2 to the 7, okay, which is 52. 52 to the 7, right? Put me on the spot. No, right, 52 to the 7, okay? And then if you add symbols, it's more, and it's something like, if you're having symbols and numbers as well, it's going to be somewhere around 90 to the 7-ish, depending on your character set. So that's too much, right, even for this. At 7 length, it might be feasible. At 8 length, it starts to get pretty difficult if you're using symbols, and at 9, it's still currently not really doable, even for MD5, okay, because that's how big the search space is. But most password cracking these days doesn't work this way. Okay, this is a start, and you can pick up the really rubbish passwords. So if your password is 6 characters long, it's being cracked right now, and it's being cracked quickly because we can go through all the 6-character passwords in a fraction of a second. For longer passwords, we have to make some assumptions about the way that people choose passwords. So obviously, the password, or indeed password 1, is actually 9 characters, which brute force is pretty good, but it's not good because it's just the sort of number 1 password to be used. And so on the top of your list of hypothetical passwords, it should be right at the top and the first one you try. Okay, so this is what a dictionary attack does. We have a dictionary of a list of commonly used words or commonly used passwords, and then we try those. And then we manipulate them slightly with rules, and we try them again. And we append them to other words, and we try them again. And we do lots of different combinations of things, and try them again. And it's pretty scary, right? It's much more effective than brute force. And so it's the current way that things are done. The hashing rate goes down a bit because you're loading dictionaries and doing word manipulations, but it's still pretty quick. So let's show you an example dictionary. So this dictionary has common passwords that have been cracked from other sources. There are other password lists, like the RockU list and soon the LinkedIn list, I'm sure, which will have a big impact because they are real passwords that people are actually using. So if you make a word list out of those passwords, that's going to be really effective. Let's run this example dictionary over our passwords, but now let's just manipulate it a bit to make it a little bit more, well, scary is one way of looking at it. Right, so hashcat, but this time we're going to run in attack mode 0, which is straight dictionary attack, okay? If I did that against my example dictionary we've got, then it will probably find, a couple. It's very quick because there's not that many, so it's already finished, and it found 1, this chap with 13 lexon. So what that's telling me is there's only one guy who happened to have the same password as in the word list. Now that's quite common because, in a really big database, you're going to have a lot of people who have password and password 1234 and 1234 and so on. All those people are going to be found this way. But what we really want to do is mix up the dictionary a little bit, swap a few letters around. So what these rules do, they do obvious things like they replace I with a number 1, or they replace E with a 3, or put an at in instead of an and, or something, They mix it up a bit, common password substitutions, leet speak, weird things like this that people think are very secure, and in fact, they've just got rules to just completely defeat them. Toggling case up and down. If a password's viable, then the same password with the first letter as uppercase, also probably viable, right? So you do all of these things, and there are rules to do this. Now, if someone does a lot of password cracking, because maybe it's their job, which is kind of a weird job, but people do it, security experts and stuff, if you're really into this, then you'll have your own dictionaries and your own rules. I'm not using them today. I don't have my own dictionaries and my own rules, because fun as this is, mostly I have normal work to do. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put in a rule set called dive.rule, right? Now, I don't know who Dive is. I expect it's an alias of some hacker somewhere. He's got quite a good rule set that works quite nicely with this hash file, okay? So let's run it. And what this is going to do is go through all of the rules in turn, and for each rule, it's going to go through the whole dictionary and try all those different combinations against these hashes. And here they come. So that was about 1,000 hashes we just got, which is a little bit worrying. Some of them are rude, right? I've scrolled past those, okay? Because some people have rude passwords. Those passwords are bad passwords because rude words are also in these dictionaries, right? So if you think you're being clever by putting swear words in your password file, you're actually just making it weaker, okay? These are some not absolutely terrible passwords in some sense. Most of them are lowercase with a few numbers. Liana Drian, which might be a name, is okay, but probably a similar word was in the dictionary and it got manipulated in some way, some letters got swapped around and suddenly it was cracked. So we've had some luck. We've done a bit of brute force, we've done a basic dictionary attack with a few rules just to mix it up, and we've got some passwords. So far I've cracked, I think, about 1,700 passwords out of about 6,500. Right? Some of these passwords aren't crackable in the sense that you could be here for days and still have some left. But I think I've previously got to about 60 or 70% fairly easily. So how can we get even better? Well, we use a better dictionary. That's the key. This example dictionary is fine. It's not very long, so some passwords are going to be in it. But as you remember, we ran it and it didn't find many passwords. It found some when we ran it through some rules, but it didn't find a lot. So what we really want to do is find a list of actual passwords that people are using in real life. and use that. Now, luckily, these leaks happen all the time, and so passwords are being just dumped out onto the internet all the time. So there's this password list called RockYou, which is a bit of a game changer in password cracking, if that's a thing, right? And basically, it's 14 million or so passwords, I think, actually leaked from a proper database of real passwords that people were using. I think it was a gaming service or something like this, and then it got leaked. And the point is that if you run the RockYou database over these hashes, you start to really get results, because there's just much more interesting passwords in the RockYou database. There's just many more of them. If I run the same thing I did before, but I pass it over the RockYou dictionary, so I'm doing the exact same thing before, same rule manipulations, passing over the RockYou dictionary, we should get many more passwords. Should we see? Okay. So it's just compiling the CUDA, and then off it goes. And here they come. And they're just going to keep coming, right? There's a lot more because we've got many rules, and we've got many 14 million passwords in this list. It's going to take quite a lot longer to do, okay? So, but it's pretty fast. If I pause it, and if we look at the status, so we're calculating now in total about 8 to 10,000 megahashes per second. So about 4 times slower because of all the dictionary manipulation it's having to do. But it's still pretty quick.
So you said compiling the CUDA. Now I've heard of CUDA mentioned in terms of graphics cards before. What does that mean?
CUDA is an NVIDIA. I mean, actually, Hashcat can work on AMD cards as well. But what it basically does is it compiles a C-like intermediate language that tells the graphic card what to do. Normally, so CUDA in detail is for a different video. But normally, what a graphics card does is basically take a load of vertices in your world, transform them into front of your camera and render them to the screen very, very quickly. And the reason it does it quickly is because it maybe has 2,800, 300, 3,000 processors all doing the same basic stuff. It's essentially taking the RockYou list, manipulating it using the rules, and testing these words for passwords at a rate of 8 to 10,000 million per second.
8 to 10,000?
Yeah, 10 billion per second, right? It's the way it's written here, so I keep saying 8,000 million, 8 billion, right? 8 billion per second.
So that's 8 billion attempts?
Yeah. So, you know, it'll try password 1, then it will try password 2, then it will try password 3 with a capital P, and so on and so forth for much more complicated passwords. And we've already, I mean, I've paused it, and we've already got 3,000 now. We had 1,700, so we've got 1,300 I ran it for about 10 seconds. And if I keep running it, so I keep resuming, they're gonna keep coming, right? And some of these passwords are really, really hard to crack by brute force or by normal dictionary. And this RockYou has changed everything in the sense that it's just so varied that you just get passwords that you
tools. They'll probably pop out like this for you. And then you can use this button, if you like, to undo